I was very little when this happened to me. Despite my age, it was one of those memories that I will never forget. We had just moved into a new house, in a new city. The house was fairly large, 2 stories with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. It was about as old as the town itself, which was over 200 years. Me and my parents had finally finished unpacking and setting up my room, and 6-year-old me was sitting on the floor and playing with the stuffed bunny when I heard a soft tapping on my window. I turned around and saw nothing. I then got up, clutching the bunny, and waddling over to the window. There, standing on the lawn in front of our new house, was Mr. Happy. He was around 7 feet tall, with such long limbs that his fingers grazed the grass below. His head was abnormally round, and he was wearing a long cloak made of vines and branches woven together. He had no facial features except for a long slit going horizontally across his face. A smile of sorts. His skin looked thick and leathery and had a grayish tint to it. I was a curious child, so instead of being absolutely terrified, I decided to wave at the creature. When he waved back, I let out a giggle and toddled downstairs. When I opened the door, Mr. Happy was gone. I didn't see him again until the following week, when I was picking flowers in a nearby meadow. I had just picked the most beautiful sunflower when I looked up and saw him standing about 30 feet away, facing my direction. I waved again, and he waved back. I started walking cautiously towards the tall creature. He didn't move. I stood in front of him now, and heard a soft noise in my brain, kind of like the noise of an old rocking chair when it's in use. The soft creaking faded, and a voice echoed through my thoughts. It was deep and as smooth as silk, and as soon as I heard it, I felt a wave of peace overtake me, and I felt calm. The voice spoke. "What is your name, young one?" "Olivia," I responded out loud. His smile seemed to widen. "Olivia." He never told me his name. I came up with the genius title of Mr. Happy because of his smile. Mr. Happy and I proceeded to play together in the woods. He would make me crowns made of daisies and bring me dolls made of sticks. I never remembered a bad time with him, until 6 months after moving in. "Child, I need to ask you something." We were sitting in the tall grass of the meadow, and he was braiding my long hair. He finished and tied the end with a piece of straw. "Yes, Mr. Happy?" I asked him, looking at him. "I wanted to wait longer, but I'm afraid I cannot. I will not be able to survive much longer if I don't ask you this favor." I cocked my head in confusion, signaling him to ask. "I need to eat. See, I am unable of hunting for my own food. I need you to bring me food." I thought nothing of this. Why had he waited so long to ask? "Don't worry, Mr. Happy. Mommy is making spaghetti tomorrow. I'll bring you some." I flashed him a bright, innocent smile. He shook his head. "No, you don't understand. I don't eat food like yours. I need you to bring me animals." Again, the thought didn't faze me. I nodded. The next day, I was in the meadow when I saw a cute little bunny that reminded me of my favorite stuffed animal. I had always attracted animals. I squatted down and urged the bunny to come to me. The little thing obliged and hopped over. I picked it up and called out Mr. Happy's name. I felt a presence behind me, and I turned around. I smiled at Mr. Happy and handed him the bunny rabbit. The small creature suddenly started panicking, and one of its claws scratched my arm. The wound started pouring blood. The amount of damage that small thing did was incredible. Mr. Happy suddenly became enraged, and I felt the atmosphere around me change. He yanked the creature out of my arms and grabbed its head with one hand, and its little tail with the other. With a quick move, he tore the rabbit in half. Entrails spilled out of both parts of the body, and Mr. Happy's face was covered in blood. He became his normal, calm self again in an instant, and for the first time, he opened his mouth. All I could see was pure black in the gaping hole that overtook his features. He dropped both sides of the carcass in the hole and closed it again. The wound was still bleeding, but I paid it no attention. I was too horrified by what my best friend had just done. He reached out for my arm, but before he could inspect the damage, I tore off towards my house. I didn't stop running at full speed until I was in the kitchen and in my mom's arms, bawling. My mother asked me what happened, and I told her everything. About meeting Mr. Happy, about giving him the rabbit, about the brutal killing of the poor thing. Of course, she didn't really believe me, but she was still scared that there was someone stalking me or something like that. She treated the scratch on my arm and talked with my dad about the incident. We moved out the next week. When we were in the car, driving away from the horrible house, I saw him. Mr. Happy was standing in my bedroom window. I couldn't help but wave one last goodbye, no matter how scared I was. But this time, he didn't wave back. Instead, he opened his mouth, reached his long arm in, and pulled out the top half of the rabbit. He grabbed one of its bloody paws and moved it side to side in a waving gesture. That was the last time I saw him.